So in February, our first block is the Audru broken rib. This is another one of those Estonian patterns that I really like. It has a simple repeat and it looks good on both sides. If you recall, this is what our pretty square looks like. And really, I think you could use this pattern on either side. I like both sides. It is meant to be put into your knitting like this, where you can see the columns of knitting instead of the columns of purling. But honestly, I like both sides very well, and it's a really pretty pattern, so you could use either side. As we get ready to begin our square, it's important to read through all of our information again. So as we read our Audru broken rib, it says that we are going to cast on 31 stitches with color number 505 Steve, but I am once again using my trusty milk. So remember, you can use any color that you want. My colors were just a suggestion. I'm going to follow my chart and I'm going to repeat the stitches between the red lines or the stars 3 times, and I'm going to repeat the whole chart 4 times before I bind off. Now, hopefully, you have refreshed your memory, if knitting is new to you or it's been a while, on how to cast on, knit, and purl. You can always go check out my videos in the introductory session if you need a little bit of help. So let's get started with our Audru broken rib. I've gone ahead and cast on my 31 stitches on my needle in milk, because remember, I'm using a different color than what I recommended. I'm not using Steve, I'm using milk, and that's okay. I'm just going to follow my chart and I'm going to repeat my stitches as I'm told. And this is all knits and purls again. Now remember, as you go to work your chart, that you have extra stitches on each side. We cast on 31 stitches, but we'll only work 9 stitches between the red lines. 9 plus 9 plus 9 is 27, and you can see that we have 2 and 2, which is an extra 4 stitches, and 27 and 4 is 31 total stitches, which is how we get our stitch count. It's important to remember that you have those ending stitches as you are working your piece so that you don't make a mistake. Remember, as you go to work your pattern, to slip the first stitch of every row. We'll actually do this on all of the blocks. And the reason we're doing that is to make it easier to sew our blanket together at the end of the year. Now, I like to slip, as I've told you before, my knits knitwise, and on the wrong side, my purls purlwise. But you can slip it any way you'd like. The reason that I like to slip it knitwise on the front and purlwise on the back is it helps me to remember if I'm on the right side or the wrong side of a row. If you're having trouble remembering which is the right side and which is the wrong side, you can also attach a small safety pin or a locking stitch marker to the front of your work to help you remember which side is which. Now that I've worked the first row of knitting on my Audru broken rib, this is what it looks like. It never looks like much when you're just getting started with knitting, but as soon as I complete one repeat of the pattern, you'll see a big difference. Now that I've completed the first 4 rows out of the 8-row pattern, I wanted to show you what it was looking like. You can already see the pattern start to develop, and you can already see that it might be pretty on both sides. Now that I have the first 8 rows completed of my pattern, I wanted to show you what it looked like. We're actually going to repeat this 4 more times to finish our block. And you may notice, especially in this cotton, that my pattern is a little bit hard to see because my fabric pulls together. And that is because we are doing a ribbing pattern. Now, the amazing thing about ribbing patterns is that they can actually pull in, and that's because you have knits, which are the front side, and purls, which are the back side of the knitting, side by side. So one stitch faces forward and one stitch faces backward, and that causes the fabric to pull in. Ribbing is beautiful stuff. It is stretchy, it is fantastic, and it's excellent in applications like a cuff of a sweater, the cuff of your gloves, mitts, or mittens, or the top of a sock, or even the bottom of a sweater, because it helps to draw in so that it makes the fabric tighter around those areas. I chose to use ribbing as a decoration in this square because I think it's just pretty. And I love how stretchy it is. What you may notice though is that until you block your squares, it'll be a little bit difficult to see that patterning. So now that we've knit through row 8, it's important to go back and knit our chart or follow our written directions 3 more times or 4 times total. And remember, it's not so important where you end in the pattern based on where I tell you to end, as it is to make certain that you have about 6 inches knit in each one of your squares. So your squares may look just a little bit different than mine, but when we put them all together, it will look amazing on our blanket. So don't worry too much about where you end each square, so long as you have about 6 inches in your squares. So now that I've knit my way through my first square, I wanted to show you what it looked like. And remember, we talked about how that ribbing was going to pull in, and clearly mine is pulling in. Once this has been blocked properly, like we will do at the end of the year, then that pattern will stretch out and you'll be able to see it a lot better, just like in this one. So let's get ready for our next block for February.